Good afternoon. It's Friday, July 31st, last day of the month of July, and I'm here with my weekly report to the residents of Batavia. I'm beginning to get sensitive. I'm feeling like I'm not giving real good reports on the news that's out there in town because there's a lot of negative things, unfortunately, that are happening given circumstances that are totally outside of our control. And I'm afraid today there's some downers that I'll have to share that won't put this in a real positive light, but that's the world that we live in. I was thinking back the other day to, when was the last time that the United States of America faced a crisis or an epidemic or any type of a situation which demanded so much change in our lifestyles as we are now doing with the current corona situation. I would suggest probably the biggest event, which certainly predated my lifetime, was the advent of World War II in 1941. And if you think back on that, if you go back to 1940, which was the year before the war started, if you were born in 1940, you'd be 80 years of age today. And so if you were a small child, you may have some memories of the World War II era, but you got to be pretty old to do it. If you're 75, you probably missed World War II altogether, because that would have birthed you in 1945, and that certainly would have taken you out of any memory of that event other than hearing about it from those who participated. But I'm told that was a very uneven and very difficult situation. Not only was the tragedy of the reports of Batavians and others of loved ones being killed in the war, but it also brought about a lot of changes in production and management and goods that were available and services that were offered. And so if there's any bright spot in the program of today, it's that we seemingly as a society have some resources together. So TV's still on and the phones are still working, and we have a great ability to communicate with one another. The biggest thing that we are seemingly short of is social gatherings. And the biggest emphasis that I think we should continue to put some attention to is social distancing and mask wearing. And I took my mask off. I generally, if I'm not talking, I will have it over my mouth. If I have to talk, I'll lower it a little bit. But masks are seemingly an essential thing. It's last week the city council at a committee meeting heard from some local residents who are taking it upon themselves to have made and will be donating some masks that are around town that are going to ask people to mask up because of the need to kind of hopefully further control the coronavirus. As you've all seen and heard on the news, there's been seemingly a little bit of a comeback in Illinois, not necessarily in Batavia or Kane County, but certainly in some of the other parts of the immediate region surrounding us. So we got to pay attention to it. I have some citizens who are very much upset about the policy that they have to wear masks, and I can understand that, but certainly the advice that we are hearing from the state and federal government is that we do need to wear masks, and we need to social distance, and we need to try to keep and leverage any type of activities where we're bringing a whole bunch of people together. And so those are the things that we are having to talk about. And today I'd just like to begin by sharing that one area that hasn't lost any attention and demand for service is certainly our police department and our fire department and ambulance service. As I talked about them last week, we continue to have some rather extraordinary calls, some of which we can talk about publicly and others that we can't. We had a situation a couple weeks ago where we had some folks that had committed some crimes, and they were riding around in a vehicle that, unbeknownst to them, was satellite monitored, and so the Batavia police got brought into a situation, and then we had people bailing out of cars in the residential areas west of Randall Road in Batavia. And so we had to bring in police search dogs and whatever in the bright sunny daylight. And needless to say, my phone was ringing off the hook down here with residents very concerned about what was happening. And some people I ran into at that time seemingly didn't even know it was happening. But anyway, we tried to communicate the best we could in those types of situations. But we have a lot going on. I've just looked in my app today, and right as of this moment, which is about 1:30 on Friday afternoon, the Batavia Fire Department in the last 24 hours has responded to 15 calls 12 of which were medic and 3 which had some kind of fire connection. And so we know that through the first half of this year, the Batavia Fire Department ambulance has responded to 1,224 calls through the end of June. And I'm sure that number has risen significantly with the activity that we've had in August. So I guess I just would continue to ask for community cooperation when it comes specifically to the wearing of masks. Every now and then I get asked to be in a picture or something, and I was in one just the other day where I took my mask off for a second so we could have a nice picture of a business that was opening, in which it would be something that the owner could have as a memento without masks all over. And the minute picture was taken, I put my mask back on. But those things happen, and I'm sure everybody faces those types of situations, but certainly I would note that you can't walk into McDonald's in downtown Batavia if you don't have the mask on. They invite you to leave or tell you to go get a mask on, and most people then probably have one in their pocket and will quickly do it. And I've been guilty myself of walking in there once or twice and had the mask in my pocket but not on my face, and they quickly reminded me and I put it on. So it happens to everybody in town, and I just would continue to ask your cooperation, because our ultimate goal is to defeat this corona thing and get it put away once and for all, and so that we don't have epidemics again like we've suffered this year, because this really has caused a lot of problems. And while I'm talking about that, I guess I have to share the sad news, which most of you are probably all aware of, is that many of the long-awaited programs at Batavia High School and the Batavia schools in general that are always planned for the fall and the early parts of the winter. So I'm told most of them are going to have to be postponed. Certainly the sports program at Batavia High School, which has risen to be one of the truly great ones in the region, had to cancel some stuff, including the football season this year, which I'm told they're going to do it in the spring. But needless to say, I've had several people very dismayed about that, and certainly not mad at anybody, but certainly upset that all these outstanding players, and I know people who have moved to Batavia so that their sons and daughters could participate in the athletic programs at Batavia High School, and I'm sure they are greatly dismayed when they find out that you can't see them play this year, probably not till hopefully in the spring, when maybe we have this thing under control. So that's one thing that's ended. Another thing I guess that's under consideration for postponement is the induction of this year's Batavia High School Hall of Honor. I haven't heard a final decision on that. I know members of the committee that are on that and are talking to Dr. Hitchens and trying to figure out which would be the best way to go. But again, they're all kind of caught between a difficult position in the corner, where if you do one thing, you may be exposing people. If you don't do it, some other issue becomes apparent. So again, another difficult decision. And the one I guess that's on my back to publicly announce is that I sat in on a meeting this past Monday evening with the Batavia Fireworks Committee. And we had hopes that we were going to be able to put on at least a partial fireworks show on the Sunday night of Labor Day weekend. But given the kind of the rise in the numbers of corona and the directions we are receiving from the state government, I think we haven't made the final decision, but it sounds like we are heading toward the idea that we will not going to have a fireworks program in Batavia for 2020. We have the money, we've already paid for the fireworks, so we've got credit for next year's show, hopefully, and maybe we can make that one a little bit bigger next year, because they have to give us the fireworks because we paid for them, but they'll bring them to us whenever it is that we want. That's a good thing, because I certainly don't need to have a bunch of fireworks stored in some building around town and then have something going. So those are kind of the bad pieces of news I got this week. I, like everybody else, like to go to the Batavia sports programs. I certainly greatly enjoy the fireworks. I've been involved with it most of my life, first as a kid and then as a member of the Batavia Paid-on-Call Fire Department, and then later as a mayor. And so this was to be the 70th anniversary of that show, and unfortunately we couldn't do it. So it's going to be a mark in the history books. I just want to try to end this comment on a positive nature, and I just want to say specifically when we talk about, the good things in Batavia, we are blessed in this town by having some outstanding records of success and achievement. certainly the commitment of the community back in 1969 to set up a park district and put that into place, and with what they've been able to accomplish over the last number of years. And this year, again, they are another one that has been greatly pushed back and restricted. But again, to the 5 members who serve as commissioners of the Batavia Park District, I take my hat off to them because they've had to make some difficult decisions, but they are doing everything they can to keep the park system and programs in place so that when things do come back, we can hit the ground running. The same holds true with our friends at the Batavia Library under George Sheets' excellent administration. Again, we've not been able to open the library fully up. They are trying to make check out books and facilities as much available as they can. They've got staff working, but again, we can't let people in the building yet because of social distancing issues. But those are all 2 groups that I really want to commend for their actions and trying to do what's best for Batavia. And certainly our school district. And if there's one area that I think Batavia has a lot to be proud in, it's in the Batavia School District. And as I review in my own mind, having graduated from there myself more than 50 years ago, and think of all those who were in school with me and all those who I've seen graduate since. I've had other mayors in town. In my office here, I have some pictures of some of the Batavia high school people that have done quite well. And, I look at the pictures on my wall and I'm looking at them behind the camera as I'm speaking. And, we've had people that went to Batavia High School that won the Grammy Award. We've had people that went to Batavia High School that are in the Basketball Hall of Fame. We've had a starting quarterback of the U.S. Super Bowl football program. We've had a number of people come out of Batavia High School and do a lot of very intellectually insightful attainment. And I just take my hat off to them. I think one area that we really have starred in is the number of high profile and very qualified and highly regarded educators that have come out of Batavia school system, many of whom are obviously not in Batavia but are in districts throughout the United States as school administrators or teachers. Or one program that certainly has shined at Batavia High School has been the fine arts program of the plays and the performances and the musicals that have been put on by both the Batavia Music Department and our Batavia Fine Arts Center. And some of the people that have come out of there are now in other schools doing excellent jobs. So we have a lot to be very, very proud of Batavia. And I know we have parents of many of those people still living here. And whatever you came out of Batavia High School and whatever you did, we've had very, very few people that we are ashamed to claim, but we have a heck of a lot more than we probably can know of or can list in any program how many there are to be proud of. So Batavia has a lot to put a smile on its face about and a lot to be proud about. And as the mayor, I certainly share in that pride that Batavia is a place that we have done some very, very interesting things, and we shall continue to do so. Just a couple of other quick notes here. In local work, I've met this past week on a couple of occasions with our engineering department from Public Works. And I was over and looked at the work that's being done over around Morton Street and Garfield and Harrison, and I know that's a work in progress as we speak. Certainly Main Street's program there's a lot going on there because it's not only a new street, but there's a lot of new utilities being put in the ground there, which replaced some stuff that was put in 1913 when we put in what they called the combined sewer, which took both the sanitary and stormwater and put it in the same pipe. And that is something that we had to correct and separate, and we're doing that, so that's been taken care of. That's delayed that project because there was a lot to do there. I was down on South Prairie Street this past week, and the curb is poured on the east side of the street, and they're getting ready to do some temporary pavement and then remove the curb on the west side of the street, and hopefully we'll have that job. All this hopefully will be wrapped up on all these by the later part of the fall. We should have it hopefully ready before winter time comes. And so those projects are moving right along. So Batavia has, I think, a lot going on. You don't have to go very far that you don't see some type of activity. And as I said last week when I read you the list, we now also are going to have $1.5 million local street resurfacing program enacted here pretty quick in the next few weeks. So if your name was on that list of streets, and you can go on the city website and look at it, you're going to see some. It won't keep you out of your house or anything, but you probably may see a some asphalt or being put down and kind of repairing some cracks in streets and stuff like that. So we have a lot going on here. The city council continues to be very active. We've had meetings the last couple of weeks of the committee of the whole where we have a lot of conversations, and I think everybody should be very proud of their aldermen, the work that they are doing, because you spend a lot of time in city government of which there's very little pay, and you really are asked, you are the government that's closest to the people, and you're the ones that if somebody doesn't like it, they can find you to tell you about it, and that certainly goes with my job, as I know it does with many members of the city council, and I just feel blessed that Batavia's been able to attract the quality of individual that we have on the Batavia City Council that has been here and has worked so hard and with such in-depth discussions before they make decisions that they have made our town a great place for us all to continue to live, and hopefully we'll make it better for future generations to have in the future. So today, as I close, as I've been doing recently, and this seems to be very, very popular, I'm involved in a project at the moment where we're trying to put together a picture book of Batavia of past years, and nothing controversial, but just old-time pictures of Batavia. And we hope to have the book out here within a few months and to offer it for sale. And the idea would be that all the profits from the book will be donated, will be published by the Historical Society, and it will be donated, all the profits of everything that's made off of it will go to pay for the fund to help expand the Depot Museum. And so that's what's going on. So a few of the pictures I'm showing you, if you really are interested in them, you may have the opportunity to buy a book here very soon that will show these pictures, and then you can share them with your family or have memories of yourself. The first picture, I'm going to spend this today on life on Wilson Street through downtown Batavia. And the first picture I'm showing is taken over at the corner of Island or Shumway, where that two streets come together in Wilson. And this building right here in the corner, it was the original First National Bank building. And as you can see in the picture, the front of the building was kind of a limestone at that time, and it was, and the front door sat on a corner, on an angle. And then later, when it was bricked up, they squared the building off. But this is what the Batavia National Bank looked like in 1912. There's one car parked in front of it, and we have another picture of John Van Noordtreek driving that car when I believe he was an officer in the bank, so I'm thinking that's why the car is parked there, because in 1912 there weren't very many cars in Batavia. The next picture I have is taken in the fall of 1941, just before the Pearl Harbor attack, and it shows East Wilson Street and the businesses which were there, and many of these all these buildings in this picture, for all intent and purposes, are still there today in some form or fashion, although all the uses have changed. But among those there is a sign for the Aurora Elgin and Chicago Aurora and Elgin streetcar, which used to come into East Wilson Street, and its station was right there on the east bank of the Fox River, and in the basement of that building. And so then next to it is Jewel Morris's clothing store, and then beyond that is other buildings up the street till you got to the old Batavia Bank. And then the next picture I want to show is Batavia in 1948, after World War II was over. And this is taken up on the East Wilson Street Hill looking west. And you can see, again, many of the buildings that on this side of the street, or this is where 6 Plus Cypress is. And you can some of the other buildings, the Body Company building, which was tore down in 1973, I believe it was, is in the picture. And then where now the boardwalk shops are is the buildings on the south side of the picture here. And those are all gone, and the boardwalk shops have now taken place. And then a very interesting picture I have, Norm Friedland, who is a kind of a history buff in Batavia, recently came down with this picture. And this shows what the corner at Water Street and Wilson looked like in the fall of 1962, after the city fire department had practiced burning down the buildings of the U.S. Wind Engine and Pump Company to make way for what was then going to be the site of the first Jewel grocery store in Batavia, along with the Ben Franklin dime store and a colonial restaurant, which today is Daddy-O's Diner. And obviously, Jewel has moved out to Randall Road, and now Riverside restaurant. Pizza is down there, and so this has all changed. But this is a great, interesting picture because it shows what the site looked like after the buildings had all been cleared off following the fire and before the new construction started. And then there's a picture that was taken in summer of 1970 of Wilson Street from the intersection at Wilson and Batavia Avenue, looking to the east. And you can see W.L. Anderson's clothing store, which was there for many, many years, is where now Special Occasions is at, is in the picture in this. And then further down the street you can see Olmsted's TV sign going up in the air, and Olmsted's is still there today, and that's probably our longest continuous retail business in Batavia. And then we go, you can see, but what's interesting about the picture, it was taken in the very early morning through a Batavia police car, and there is not a car on the street from Batavia Avenue to Prairie Street in this picture. So that's unique. And then the final picture I have is one that kind of records history. This was taken in October of 1973. And this shows the moving of the Depot Museum from its former location at Webster and South Van Buren across downtown Batavia over to its current location at Houston and Water Street. And what's interesting about it is that the building is being pulled by a truck mounted on a flatbed. And up on the top of it you can see a human being sitting on the crest of the roof up there. And that's Fred Schrader, who was then the foreman of the Batavia Electric Utility, and Fred rode on top of the peak of that Depot Museum for the whole ride just to pick up and move any electrical wires that the building potentially could run under or across during the trip. So again, another great Batavia memory of a great moment in our history. And today I'd just like to end by wishing you all a happy weekend. And hopefully we all have a very nice, memorable, and successful August ahead of us. And I will look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a great week. Thank you.